Hello, dear ladies. Welcome back to Menopause University, where we discuss and dissect everything there is to know about menopause every which way. I'm Menopause Taylor, your master dissector. This is video number 381, and it's one of 3 videos that collectively address the question as to whether estrogen alone, or progestogen alone, or estrogen and progestogen together increase risk or cause breast cancer. This is the 26th video in the breast cancer unit. So don't assume you can just jump in and start watching here and still get any kind of real education. Starting with video 1 and watching all my videos in order is absolutely vital to your menopause education. This is especially true for a topic that is as mixed up, messed up, distorted, twisted, blown out of proportion, and scary as breast cancer. The upside down information about menopause itself is bad enough, but breast cancer wins the contest as the topic with the absolute most misinformation. So I'm taking the time to ensure that you really know all the facts. What you do with them is entirely up to you. You will need to watch these videos for the dissection of estrogen alone and progestogen alone. While I do mention them in my book, I don't dissect them the way I do here in this video, or in the video before or after this one. Okay, so our goal today is to find evidence to help us answer the question, does progestogen alone cause breast cancer? This is my prop for progestogen. And the very first thing you need to understand is why I use the word progestogen. If you've been watching all my videos in order, you already know why. But if you haven't, you're probably clueless. The word progestogen includes all the different kinds of progesterone. Physiologic progesterone produced by your own body, bioidentical progesterones made by either a compounding pharmacy or a pharmaceutical company, and synthetic progestins made by a pharmaceutical company. Progesterone is the term we use for both the progesterone your own body produces and the progesterone products made by a compounding pharmacy or pharmaceutical company that are all bioidentical to the progesterone your own body produces. In other words, progesterone is used for any progesterone product that has the very same chemical structure as the progesterone in your own body. In contrast, progestin is the term we use for any synthetic progestogen that is made by a pharmaceutical company and differs slightly in chemical structure from the progesterone your own body produces. And we will cover both progesterone and progestins in this video. The two together are progestogens. The second thing we need to clarify is the definition of the word cause. And once again, if you've been watching my videos in order, this is old hat to you. Saying progestogen causes breast cancer means that it alone induces the first normal cell to transform into a cancer cell. All breast cancers begin with one single cell encountering a stimulus that causes just that one cell to transform from a normal breast cell into a breast cancer cell. And so the question is, does progestogen do that? So by saying that progestogen causes breast cancer, we are saying that progestogen alone is the very stimulus that can cause this transformation. And it can do so all by itself without anything else contributing. And the third clarification that is old news to you if you've been watching my videos in order is the purpose of progesterone in your body. This helps to put things into perspective. I use the three bears from Goldilocks and the Three Bears to ensure your understanding of the roles of the three sex hormones. So we have Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. And just as each bed, chair, and bowl of porridge belonged to only one bear, each of the three sex hormones belongs to only one bear. Testosterone is Papa Bear's hormone. Estrogen is Mama Bear's hormone. And progesterone is Baby Bear's hormone. So if we use the analogy of the three bears to men, women, and babies, as well as to testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, the only reason you, Mama Bear, produce progesterone at all is to support Baby Bear during pregnancy. The word progesterone literally means hormone in support of pregnancy. Pro means in support of. Gest means gestation or pregnancy. Own means hormone. So what we're asking is if Baby Bear's hormone, the one you don't need for anything yourself, causes breast cancer. It was never there for you in the first place. So does it cause breast cancer? It seems a lot more logical than your own Mama Bear hormone, estrogen, causing breast cancer, doesn't it? Well, let's see if it turns out that way or not. And just as we did for estrogen in the last video, we'll strive to discover the answer today by assessing scenarios in which your body is exposed to progestogen alone, all by itself. So we will attempt to fill in the yellow column of our chart. Notice that I've written NA, meaning not applicable, in the cells pertaining to production of progestogen alone by your own body. And that's because there is no time when your body ever produces progestogen alone. So we have to rely on the introduction of progestogens into your body to assess the possibility of progestogen alone as a cause of breast cancer. I've taught you before that the traditional medical community focuses on estrogen, whereas the alternative community focuses on progestogen. And not only does the alternative community focus on progestogen, it focuses on progesterone specifically, and it also pushes progesterone. It encourages women to use progesterone alone for just about everything. So the best way to try to answer the question of whether progestogens cause breast cancer is to look at the data from the alternative community. The alternative angle claims that estrogen is bad. It made up the term estrogen dominance to place blame on estrogen for all gynecologic and some non-gynecologic problems. And it promoted the use of progesterone as the good hormone that can correct or prevent all the problems caused by estrogen. Now, as I say that, does it sound logical to you? Your own Mama Bear hormone is bad for you, so use Baby Bear's hormone instead? That is exactly what the alternative community preaches. And the alternative community pushes and sells progesterone as the remedy for just about everything. And despite how illogical that may be, a lot of women believe this line of propaganda. But as a result of this fear-mongering, there are a lot of women who use progesterone only to manage their perimenopause and even post-menopause. So, as ironic as it is, the alternative community's focus on using progesterone only provides us with the data that may help us answer our question. And I am using the term progesterone now because one of the biggest messages delivered by the alternative community is that natural or bioidentical progesterone is good, but synthetic progestins are bad. So let's see how breast cancer rates differ in women who use progesterone only for either perimenopause or postmenopause compared to women who do not. Okay, starting with perimenopause. You know that perimenopause is defined as loss of progesterone only. So it's loss of this multicolored line. Your estrogen is still there, but very confused and chaotic. Progesterone here is the only hormone that has disappeared. So some women take progesterone all by itself during perimenopause. That's here when their progesterone is deficient. And it can actually help them with their symptoms of progesterone deficiency. The symptoms of progesterone deficiency include heavy periods, PMS, anxiety, and headaches. And progesterone helps because the only thing that's deficient is progesterone. But when they get here to postmenopause, the problem is no longer progesterone deficiency. It's estrogen deficiency, the pink line. And that's when taking progesterone to compensate for estrogen deficiency makes about as much sense as Mama Bear trying to wear Baby Bear's clothes. But despite how logical or illogical you may find any of this, the reason I'm bringing it up is because this is the primary source of data in which women have taken progesterone alone without estrogen. So the cells in our chart that we can address with data from the use of progesterone only, as promoted by the alternative community, are the ones in the yellow column for compounded progesterone and bioidentical progesterone in either a cyclic or a continuous regimen. I've encountered prescriptions for progesterone only written in all sorts of interesting ways. There is no uniformity whatsoever. But at least it gives us examples of women taking progesterone all by itself. So the opportunity to determine whether or not progestogens alone cause breast cancer comes from post-menopausal women who have neither estrogen nor progesterone, but who take progesterone only for their menopause management. Well, with so many women fearing estrogen dominance and taking progesterone only, even when they have no estrogen at all, what do the studies show with regard to progesterone's ability to cause breast cancer? Well, nothing. I mean, there are no studies. The alternative community does not do studies like the traditional medical community does. Now, I see this as a lost opportunity. I would love to see what such studies showed. But for now, we have to accept the fact that we just don't know the answer. So I'll add a question mark to those cells. So on our chart, in the cells for compounded bioidentical, cyclic, and continuous progesterone alone, I've written alternative data along with a question mark to indicate that we have no answer because the source of the information does not do studies to provide the answer. So instead of having good data on the effect of progesterone alone, all we have is the effect of estrogen with progestogen, and we'll address that in the next video. Okay, so what if we shift our attention from progesterone to progestins? In other words, do synthetic progestins taken alone cause breast cancer? These will be the products made by pharmaceutical companies. Now, unlike the alternative community, the traditional medical community does not push progestins. In fact, it would be very unusual for a woman to take a synthetic pharmaceutical progestin all by itself for post-menopause. She may very well do so for perimenopause, but that does not give us useful information with which to answer our question about whether or not progestins increase risk or cause breast cancer. And that's because at perimenopause, estrogen is still being produced by your own body. So it is not a time when you can study progestins alone. The result is that there is very little data on the effect of progestins alone with regard to breast cancer also. And that's because most women who use pharmaceutical progestin-only products do so for birth control during premenopause rather than for postmenopause. And that means they use it for birth control when their own bodies are still producing both estrogen and progesterone. Now, there are all sorts of these progestin-only products for pregnancy prevention, including Depo-Provera shots, progestin IUDs, intrauterine devices, progestin implants, and progestin-only birth control pills called the mini pill. Women who use these do not have higher rates of breast cancer. But the problem with these situations for our analysis is that women of reproductive age still have estrogen and progesterone in their bodies. So the progestin is not isolated. If it were, we would have data for the other two cells on our chart. But since we don't, we'll have to leave those with a question mark too. So now I've added the words progestin only and a question mark to the cells for pharmaceutical and non-bioidentical progestins to indicate that we have no answer because the women who use these are in the wrong phase of their hormonal lives to provide the answer. So you see that we have no answers for any of our assessments in the yellow column. You know you can find this chart at menopausetailor.me or in this description box link, of course. But let's move on to something else. There are some recent studies claiming that bioidentical progesterone is less likely to increase your risk of breast cancer than non-bioidentical progestins. And there is some merit to that logic. The problem is that women who take non-bioidentical progestins for birth control do not have higher rates of breast cancer. And this is true even if they use progestins for over 20 years. But there could be a difference when it comes to taking estrogen with progesterone versus taking estrogen with a progestin, and we'll get to that in the next video. What this means is that we have nothing to tell us if progestogens alone increase the risk of breast cancer or cause breast cancer. We simply don't know. Sometimes we just have to accept that we don't have all the answers. In my mind, the fact that there are so many unknowns means that we should start doing the kinds of studies that can provide the answers rather than staying stuck in a mindset that is clearly not consistent with the available data. So the summary for today is there is insufficient data to assess whether or not progestogens alone increase risk of breast cancer or cause breast cancer. So if we add what you learned today to what you learned in the video preceding this one, for now, we know that estrogen alone either decreases your risk of breast cancer or has no effect on it at all. Estrogen does not cause breast cancer. And progestogen alone has not been studied enough to know one way or the other. Do you see how frustrating this is? I know you're used to having me tell you facts, but sometimes we don't have the facts. Sometimes all we have are questions to which we have no answers. I don't understand why the experts don't just say that. I mean, what's so difficult about just saying, I don't know? Instead, you've been led to believe that we have the answers and that estrogen causes breast cancer. But that is grossly inaccurate. You know, sometimes scientists latch onto a theory and promote it as fact even when there is plenty of data to refute it. It reminds me of the whole debacle as fact as the sole cause of heart attacks to the exclusion of sugar. Look how long that stayed with us. And look how much havoc it wreaked. It's as if scientists and the public just have to blame something, even when it makes no sense at all. My goal is to present information to you as it is in reality, regardless of whether or not there's an answer. I want you to learn how to think through things to make educated assessments based on logic. Our world is getting worse and worse with regard to presenting falsehoods as facts. And I won't do that. I will stick to facts, maintain my integrity, remain true to myself, and honest to you. If you need me to help you with anything, you can schedule a consultation with me at menopausetailored.me. Otherwise, just subscribe to this channel and come back next week for a discussion on whether estrogen plus progestogen together cause breast cancer. Subscribe to my newsletter too, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Stories. Bye!